OpenClaw is becoming part of OpenAI, and Peter Steinberger, the creator of OpenClaw, is joining OpenAI. And I think that's interesting from the perspective of a developer for a couple of reasons. It tells us something about where OpenAI is heading and has a couple of interesting implications, I would say. Now, in a blog post Peter shared on his website, he mentions that his next mission is to build an agent that even his mom can use. Because, of course, with OpenClaw right now, you still need a certain level of technical knowledge or expertise in order to set it up and use it. And I would argue that's a good thing because, as I also argued in a video a couple of days or weeks ago, OpenClaw can be dangerous or has some serious security issues, which a lot of people, even with technical expertise, are either not getting or just ignoring, or they're not doing as much useful stuff with OpenClaw as they share, which is, of course, absolutely possible because, it's the internet and 2026. Anyways, I shared my opinion on OpenClaw in that video, but I'll come back to it from time to time here. This mission of having an AI agent that's usable by everybody, essentially, assuming that his mom is not a cracked developer, is obviously what all the AI companies, OpenAI, Anthropic, they are all pursuing it. Because, of course, having us developers as customers with tools like Claude Code, Codex, and so on, which are all great, is nice, but the market out there is way bigger. And of course, the end goal of these companies is to get to a point where AI agents do it all. And, well, essentially, we can replace humans first in the digital space and then with robotics everywhere. Now, I won't get into whether that will happen anytime soon. I think I shared my opinion on this in many videos already. I don't even see developers being replaced anytime soon, leave alone humans in general. And I also don't believe that is a good goal. But yeah, that's a whole different story. What is interesting here, though, is that Sam Altman shared that with Peter Steinberger joining OpenAI, they, in the end, expect that this OpenClaw will quickly become core to our product offerings. So an AI agent like OpenClaw. He also mentions that OpenClaw will live in a foundation as an open source project, so it will stay open source, that OpenAI will continue to support. The future is going to be extremely multi-agent, and it's important to us to support open source as part of that. What I'm reading from that statement pretty clearly is that OpenAI will build their own agentic offering on top of OpenClaw, or using some of the learnings or even parts of the code base of OpenClaw. So OpenClaw, yeah, will stay open source and they will continue to support it, maybe just as they will continue to stay open. I don't know. But they will definitely also build an agent on all those learnings from OpenClaw, which, as I understand it, will very likely not be open, but which will be a paid offering, which of course makes total sense from a business point of view. Now, in my video, I shared some concerns about security related to OpenClaw. And my biggest concerns are not about vulnerabilities in the codebase, which of course can be fixed over time, and where of course having a company the size of OpenAI in your back can help a lot. That's not my biggest concern. My biggest concern with OpenClaw was and is prompt injections. That is my number one concern with all these agents. And that is a fundamental problem with large language models. Coding agents are great assistants. They get lots of stuff wrong. They need steering. And whenever I hear people tell me that they can already write end-to-end software, I'm eager to see all that software out there, because that has not been my experience. But in the hands of a capable developer, those coding agents can indeed yield a significant productivity boost. That is my experience with them. That is what I think about coding agents. But important, they're far away from replacing developers. And of course, coding to some extent is the best task for these AI models and large language models because it's text in, text out, and a lot of relevant context, not all of it, but a lot of the relevant context is right there in the code base for the model to see and use. And that, of course, is a huge difference compared to many other tasks in the world, in the digital world too. But no matter if we're talking about coding agents or agents like OpenClaw, prompt injections are a major problem. Now, a prompt injection can be subtle or unexpected. Of course, you could say you are writing the prompts with OpenClaw or with coding agents, but as soon as your coding agent goes visit a website, or in the case of OpenClaw, reads an email, all that stuff, all that text it digests goes into a new prompt, and that is an attack vector right there for prompt injections. Now, with coding agents, the advantage is that, for one, you should run them in a sandbox, but second, they typically don't have broad access to your email account, to all your digital life, and you, as a developer, should be paying attention to what your coding agent does. You typically have to grant permission or deny permission. It asks you all the time if it's allowed to do that or do that. And of course, you can run it in some dangerous mode. And if you put it in a sandbox, you might be safe enough that it's not going to delete your hard drive. But you are entering some dangerous territory there nonetheless when it comes to prompt injections, if you're not checking in on what your coding agent is doing at all. Still, the major difference compared to OpenClaw is that the coding agent does not have access to your entire digital life. Now, the idea with OpenClaw, of course, is to have that agent that even Peter's mom can use, and of course the idea is that you have an agent that can do anything for you. You just text it, hey, please check my emails and draft some replies. Of course, it needs access to your email account then. If it has access to your email account, it could send emails. And I'm not talking about sending emails where it maybe starts insulting people, which would be bad enough, but it could exfiltrate data, because guess what? It can also gather data. It can roam your system, collect data, and then send it through an email to some malicious bad actor due to a prompt injection, for example. That is the huge security issue I see, which I shared in this video, and which of course persists, and that's the important part, which will persist even with OpenAI behind the project. Now, is it something that can be solved? My understanding is, with large language models, the way they work, not in general, but instead only with a concept that we've had for a long time, which is called zero trust. The idea is that you run your coding agent in an environment where you don't trust any of its actions, and where you restrict what it can do, and you have to explicitly grant permissions for certain things you want to allow it to do. And for example, when it comes to sending emails, you might want to set up an environment where it has to ask you for every single email it wants to send, and you as a human have to validate it and then approve or deny that request. Of course, such an environment, which is super restrictive and asks you all the time whether you want to grant a certain permission or not, is not really in line with that philosophy of having an amazing agent that can do it all on your behalf whilst you are in bed asleep. And that is why I don't see that agentic future right now. Maybe not anytime soon. But we'll see what OpenAI can do there, I guess. They also might just not care too much about security issues, but then again, they probably have to, because their paying customers will likely not be too happy if data gets exfiltrated. Now, long story short, I'm still super skeptical, even though I see the appeal of agents like OpenClaw, having that helpful 24/7 assistant that can help you with digital stuff may sound pretty nice, and I definitely see that this is a future we could be heading towards. And Even though I don't yet have the use cases where it would be super useful because I don't want to give it those broad permissions, and even with them, I'm not sure if I would have that many use cases. Even with all that in mind, I totally get why OpenAI is super interested in this project. It also very well might mean, though, that OpenClaw is kind of going away over time. The hype might be dying down relatively soon, also because of the image of OpenAI, and of course, because as I read this, this sounds very much like that typical corporate statement where they say, yeah, we're going to support this. And then at some point, they stop supporting it. They don't care. They build their own product. And then I guess we will see how good or bad that product is.